Today we are replacing a water pump and a thermostat on a 2012 Toyota Camry 2.5. It's a pretty easy job and it can save you a lot of money if you do it yourself. Let's raise the car a little bit. If you don't have jack or jack stands, just park the car on a little slope with the nose up. That will help you to disperse the bubbles from the system. To remove the battery, you're going to use a 10mm socket. Just disconnect the negative terminal and set it aside so we don't short anything. Alright, let's remove the radiator cap. And then start draining the fluid by opening up the drain plug at the bottom of the radiator. And then we're going to take a 14mm wrench and then pull the belt tensioner towards ourselves and then slip off the belt off of the alternator. It could be a hassle here if you have a brand new belt and a tensioner. Also, if your belt or tensioner are bad, it's a good time to replace it right now. Okay, and here's the reason why I'm replacing my water pump. If you see when I move it side to side, there is a little play, which means that the water pump is failing and I don't want to be stranded on the road. Let's remove the belt and set it aside. To make this job a little bit easier, I'm actually going to remove the alternator. If you see, I'm starting with those brackets on the top. It's a 14mm. Just use the breaker bar to break it, and then you can do it by hand or ratchet the rest of the way. And then we're going to remove the dipstick and disconnect the sensor. Okay, on the alternator itself, you're going to grab a 10mm socket. There is a 10mm nut, but you're going to have to slide the rubber boot off and then remove the nut. Okay, once you do that, there is an electrical connector that also needs to be removed. And between those two wires, there's a 10mm bolt that is holding the wire harness to the alternator. Let's remove that. Okay, and to move the wires a little bit to the side, we're gonna unbolt this 10mm nut and move it to the side. And on the alternator itself, we are gonna use a 14mm socket and a breaker bar to break those two bolts. And then we're gonna use a ratchet the rest of the way. While removing the top bolt, I'm actually gonna hold the alternator so it does not fall down and damage anything. And to remove the alternator, you're gonna move it sideways like so, and then try to wiggle it out. Could be struggling a little bit, and that's okay. And then we can tighten the radiator drain bolt. And for the water pump itself, there's 7 bolts which are 14mm. You can use a breaker bar to break them. And some of them it's really hard to get to, so you might have to use like a little extension. I didn't have the right combination of tools to remove the bottom 2 bolts from the water pump, so I decided to remove the belt tensioner as well. It's a 12mm bolt. You can just use a wrench for that. So once you get all of the bolts out, you can use a wrench or a screwdriver to pry the water pump, but be careful because it's an aluminum housing, so you don't damage it or crack it. And put something underneath the car because the coolant is gonna splash a little bit everywhere. And also be careful removing the metal gasket of the water pump. Here's the difference between the new one and the old one. It's almost like free spinning, but the new one, not so much. So before installing the new water pump, let's scrape off the rest of the gasket on the water pump housing using a razor, and then just wipe it off using a shop towel. And there's no wrong way to put the water pump gasket, so you can use 2 bolts to hold it in place while you're installing it. Alright, so I'm gonna hand tighten the bolts first. And then use a ratchet to make them snug. Don't overdo it. Again, it's aluminum. It's very easy to strip out the threads. Alright, and I'm gonna torque it to 15 foot-pounds. So before installing the thermostat, let's make sure that it's not stuck close from the factory. It's actually pretty easy to test thermostats. You're gonna boil the water and then just submerge your thermostat under the boiling water. And this is the old thermostat from the car. I'm just using it for demonstration purposes, but if you see that it actually opened, and there's a temperature rating on the thermostat of which it's supposed to open, and then when we actually lift it, you see that it's actually getting closed by itself. So to remove the thermostat, there is 2 10mm bolts. And be careful not to crack the thermostat housing. It can be brittle from all the heat and cold cycles. Okay, once you get it out of the way, there will be a little bit of spill, which is fine. Just make sure to wipe it down so you know if you're alright, and to remove it, I'm just gonna use a screwdriver. Make sure also to remove the gasket. There's a rubber gasket around it.
Make sure this part is on the top.
Also, when you install it, place the breather up to the top. So the torque spec on the thermostat housing is around 7 foot-pounds. I don't have a torque wrench like that, so I just tighten it carefully. And now we can reinstall the belt tensioner. The space is very tight here, so it's better to use a 12mm wrench.
like and subscribe so you don't miss our latest videos. See you!
Okay, we're gonna torque alternator to 38 foot-pounds. And put back the 10mm bolt on the alternator housing. Do the same with the 10mm nut. Connect the sensor again. Put the dipstick back in. Now put the bracket. Again, we're going to use a 14mm here. I don't have torque specs here, but I'm just going to snug it up. And now it's time to install the belt. Okay. Make sure that the belt is on all pulleys, otherwise the belt is going to snap and damage some of the components inside of the engine compartment. Sometimes you might need to go underneath the car and check where the crankshaft pulley is, that it's on correctly. Alright, and then you're gonna let's remove the coolant from the coolant reservoir using a fluid transfer pump, or if you don't have that, you can actually remove the reservoir and then dump the fluid that way. And then to fill up a radiator, we're going to use a no-spill coolant kit from Amazon. You just need to find the right attachment to your radiator and then fill up the rest of the way with the correct coolant. In this case, we are using Icyn ACT002. It's the same thing as the Toyota Long Life coolant. Just make sure to have it at least 1/3 of the way so you don't introduce bubbles into the system. Keep adding the coolant until it stops. And I'm gonna press on the upper radiator hose to remove some of the trapped air in the system. And now we can connect the battery again to complete the bleeding procedure. So we're gonna start the car. The heater all the way to hot, so that opens up the heater core. And we're gonna set the fan to low. And also, I would like the air to blow into my face. Make sure that the recirculator is on and AC is off as well. And then just make sure when the car heats up a little bit that there is a hot air or warm air coming out from the vents. And look into the temperature. Make sure that this does not go beyond the middle point, the operating temperature. Otherwise, shut off the engine and then retry the procedure later again. Then while the engine is running, you're gonna see more bubbles come out, which is normal. After the engine warmed up and came to operating temperature, I'm gonna squeeze on the upper radiator hose, make sure that all the air bubbles are gone, and let the engine idle for 3 to 5 minutes. So my battery died, but with the rest of the coolant that was in the funnel here, just dump them into the reservoir and make sure that it's on full. It's gonna drop when the car sits overnight, which is normal, so don't worry about it. Let the car sit overnight, then open up the radiator cap, make sure that the engine is cold, and check the level in the radiator and make sure that it's full, just like here.